Today, we're going to talk about building a strong business case for maintenance and reliability. This is a question I get asked all the time. Um, we've got reliability folks who know kind of they feel like they need to do this, but then justifying it to leadership and building the business case is an area where a lot of people get a little bit stuck or uncertain. And we've got one of the best here today to talk us through it. So I'm really excited. Some quick housekeeping here for y'all. The webinar is being recorded, so if you've got to bounce early or you join late, or you just want to be living in the moment, not take notes, you're going to get a copy later today, and you'll be able to ask questions as well through that Q&A feature. So go ahead and get ready if you've got anything or if something comes to you while we're live. You can share it then. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Nick Haas. I'm one of the co-founders here at MaintainX. I work in driving strategic initiatives with our enterprise clients and internal teams across our go-to-market functions. I lead our community. If you haven't checked that out yet, please do. We've got a special surprise waiting in there for folks as well right now. And you may have seen me at industry events. In fact, I'll be joining Terrence for his event later this year on stage. I'm excited to have to be there. So you'll be able to meet both of us later this year. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Not to get too far ahead of myself. And worked with a lot of digital transformation teams and helped build strategies out for a lot of large companies. And now for our featured guest today, Terrence O'Hanlon, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you very much. I do a lot of different things. I'm passionate about reliability is really what you need to know. I'm super excited about it. And I want to tell you, whether you work in maintenance or reliability or asset management, it's okay to be excited about it. Not everybody is, but hey, look, if you're on this call, you probably got some great software from Nick and team. So that life's already better. And we're going to talk about things that'll make things a lot better today. I love it because it's not just, mechanically keeping things going. It's sustainability. And our definition of sustainability is endure, and it's safer. So who's going to argue against safe, sustainable, and successful? It seems like there are arguments out there, but that's what I wake up thinking about every day. What can I do with you so that you can communicate to your other teams, your other stakeholders, your bosses, your coworkers, so we can get this thing going? There's no reason to I shouldn't say there's no reason to get stuck in the dysfunction, but there's no reason to stay there. And that's what we'll talk about today. And that's what I do. I'm excited about it. I do a lot of different things for work, but primarily I keep my head in reliability. That's what I think about in the morning. That's what I think about at lunch. That's what I think about at dinner. I take the night off and I don't dream about it. But short of that, I'm always thinking about reliability. And that's what you should know about me.
Well, Terry, you've got a long resume to fit into three questions here, or three bullet points here. But to kick things off and kind of help set the foundation here, I've got a poll here in the audience that I want to share. How many of you all have heard of the uptime elements before? Go ahead and fill that out real quick, and that'll give us a great opportunity to tee off this conversation. So we're starting it off. Go ahead and just click yes or no. Uptime elements. All right, it looks like we're in for a treat because Terry, we've got a lot of folks who are going to be introduced to it for the first time today.
That's great.
And we're going to help. This is going to be a great paradigm shift for a lot of folks here. I'm excited to share. So we'll go ahead and get started. So Terry, what is the uptime elements? And talk through what that maturity assessment looks like that you guys do at with your team.
Terrific. Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate that opportunity as well. Uptime elements is a framework. At its most simplest explanation, it's a framework that is really focused on reliability and asset management. And maintenance is a big part of reliability and asset management. So uptime elements is a framework for reliability and asset management. It's broken into what we call knowledge domains. And so what it really is, it's a way for maintainers to talk to the other stakeholders in their organization in sort of a simplified fashion and in a highly defined fashion so that you can communicate what the issues are. Because maintenance is one of those really misunderstood things in most companies. We make three distinctions in this framework. Maintenance is when you're repairing and you're renewing and you're restoring and you're rebuilding and you're replacing and you're inspecting. Those are the activities of maintenance. Reliability is assuring that you have a strategy to deliver the function that the asset was designed to do. So it's a functional assurance an approach. And then asset management is aligning these assets that your company has invested in with the company's goals. So the company's goals could be the number one soda manufacturer, in the United States or in Canada, something like that. How do you align the assets to deliver you as the number one beverage company in America? That's what the idea of it is. And it's broken into reliability, engineering, asset condition management, what most people call predictive maintenance, work execution management, leadership for reliability, which at the beginning of this we thought was the real key. It is a key, not the only key. And then asset management, which is really aligning all your technical activities with your business and your business objectives. So that's really in a nutshell sort of what uptime elements is. One last thing I want to say is that we usually find maintainers know a lot about these different tiles, but not all the operations people do, not all the purchasing people do, not all the engineering people do, not all the executives do, not all the people in HR do. So when you go to communicate your world and what's going on with your world, it can be a little intimidating for the other people. Nobody, especially when your bosses, want to say, I don't understand what you're talking about. So this is a way to break it down and sort of understand a little bit better, if that makes any sense. So,
It does, and I got my reliability, webs, the uptime elements here, pyramid here that on my desk at all times to just keep a
oh, look at
nice
that.
little of how that works. So the
Yeah, and really it's just a simple way to understand maintenance, reliability, and asset management. That's the idea.
and what I think is really a powerful piece of this, there's a ton of reliability content out there for the folks that are actually, turning the wrenches, trying to solve the really tough engineering problems. But what stands out, I think, uniquely with uptime, elements is that it's designed for everyone in the organization to be able to understand, to give you that common vernacular and that shared kind of foundation to learn and speak to. And per the title of the webinar, companies that are frequently asking us how to build a strong business case, I found it helps by having a shared language. If you
Yes.
can help communicate what some of these things mean to folks across your organization, um, then you're gonna have a better understanding. If in one sentence, how would you advise that companies frame reliability's impact on revenue, and what
Well,
number and impact would you lead with, and why?
well, again, let's just go back to the distinctions for a minute.
Yeah,
Maintenance, reliability, and asset management. So maintenance is sort of stuck in this cost world because unfortunately, when you look on your profit and loss statement that your company produces from the accounting department, there's going to be a line there that says maintenance cost. Uh,
yeah,
there's not much you can do. That's the cost of the assets that you have and maintaining them, and to renew them, repair them, restore them back to the original condition. That's
right,
maintenance. Reliability, again, that's that assurance of function. Think about it like your car. You buy a new car. You don't take it home and go, wow, let me open the hood and make a bunch of adjustments so I can improve the reliability here.
right,
So, when you hear the word improve reliability, is kind of a little uncomfortable because with the assets that you've been given through a capital project or something, when they hand over the keys, they're not gonna that reliability is pretty much built in. So reliability, you could almost say, is free in the asset creation process, right? But once the keys are handed over and it's in the real world, it's anything but free. It can be super expensive. What happens is companies don't do it. Let's just say for 1 year or 2 years. Imagine if you didn't maintain your car for 1 or 2 years. What would you have to do to bring it back to, if you did maintain it for those 2 years, if you did maintain it properly? You're gonna have to probably make some investment,
Yep.
$1,500, 3,000, 5,000, some number like that, to bring it back up to standards. That's where most people get really stuck, is because
Mhm.
the assets were engineered with a certain inherent reliability. Then they came over, and in the environment that they were in, some manager thought, well, we can cut 10% out of maintenance. Those maintenance guys are always standing around, walking around. We can, of course, cut 10% out of that. But they're not doing so with valid engineering behind it. They just think there's 10% fat to be cut, so to speak. And the asset doesn't care. The asset could care less what your plan is. It has to respond to physics. So I just want to really set that first. There's a debt. You're probably familiar with it because there's a thing called technical debt. If you don't keep your software up to date, you have
Yeah.
technical debt, and you got to pay it back. If you want leading edge technology to help your company, you got to pay back your technical debt and get to zero so that you can move forward. It's almost like that with reliability. Call it maintenance debt or reliability debt. So
Mm.
how do you go to your boss and say, we haven't been doing what we should have been doing for the past two
Yeah.
years or years or 5 years, and we need to get up to zero. We need $1 million to get up to zero.
Got
Wow,
a debt. We're gonna get a debt. Yeah.
that's a super hard that's a super hard argument to make to most bosses. And they're saying, wait a
Sure.
second, we're operating every day. We're a Fortune 500 company. We can't be doing it that wrong. We have to be doing it that right. So we need to first just make sure that the context is set correctly. If you haven't been investing in reliability, you have to bring it up to speed before you can move forward. If you have been, and many companies do really good with maintenance and they're doing the right thing and maybe a few things off here and there, in which case reliability is very inexpensive to do. It's kind of training people how to think. I know everybody's hungry for the technical answer. Should I get vibration analysis? Should I implement a new CMMS, that type of thing? The answer is yes and yes and yes. Anything that you can get it and go, because it's all good stuff. But
Yeah.
what the aspect of it is that if you don't have to invest in that reliability debt, you can maybe revisit your maintenance strategies through reliability centered maintenance investment or PM optimization investment. Maybe you could start a root cause analysis group so that when you do have an unexpected breakdown, you figure out the answers and you add that to your maintenance strategy. Um,
Right.
but to me, the number one step is how you think. In uptime elements, it's how things occur to you. So how reliability occurs to you is going to match how you perform it, because that's how humans work. We have this idea in our head and then we try to perform to that idea. That's what uptime elements does. It maybe changes the idea of what is this reliability thing we're going after. It's not one thing, it's a cornucopia of things, and we need to do them sort of all together. And last, it's not maintenance fault.
Yeah.
Listen, maintenance is only responsible for about 10 or 15, or at the worst case, 20% of the things that maintenance department is forced to spend money on.
Yep.
But maintenance didn't break the machine, operators broke it, or some engineer who made a bad decision on the way to that asset broke it. So maintenance is one
Yeah.
of the only departments in the company. They have a budget, they have expectations, but they're not in control of the circumstances that cause the
Mm.
maintenance. When because if the boss is yelling, we need more widgets, and the operator cranks up the machinery way beyond its
Yeah.
operating envelope, guess what? That's gonna be a future maintenance cost, and maintenance
Yep.
didn't make operations made that.
That's right.
Maintenance. So that's why it's super important to communicate with the stakeholders up and downstream. A free thing to do is defect elimination. Teach
Yeah.
purchasing why they shouldn't buy the $2 gasket that's going to create oil leaks 6 months from now. They want the $5 gasket that's going to last 10 years in there, and we're never going to have an oil leak. But guess who got rewarded? They bought the $10 gasket for two. The
Yeah.
bosses thought, what geniuses we've hired in purchasing. Why can't those maintenance people be as good as this? So,
Yeah.
it's a matter of where's that response. And I'm not trying to get maintenance to shirk
Right.
responsibility, but you do
Sure.
have to realize that you're sort of victimized by the decisions that are made in other parts of the company that you do not have sphere of influence in.
Makes a ton of sense. And when you think about, like, what's the most persuasive, like, cost of inaction stat you'll use with these leaders or execs to help kind of explain that power of the reliability initiatives? I mean, you've got this great ecosystem of a fault that, that we're kind of thinking through right now, and how everything goes into it. What have you found that helps kind of break through the non, that to those operations minded folks that are, they technically oversee reliability as well, but they're really focused on production or things like that.
And I know everybody's looking for the easy answers, but the three, unfortunately, the business that I picked, reliability. Hardly anybody wakes up in the morning and says, "Wow, I is really going to do the right thing for reliability, and I'm going to make the investments, and we're going to just do what we need to do." What happens is, because of that reliability debt that I'm talking about, because you bought the new car and you didn't maintain it, you bought the new fancy assets, and they didn't get operated or maintained or engineered the way that they should have. You've got this debt that you've got to deal with. Um,
Wow.
what do? You push it off. You put just like our federal debt at our government. You push it off, you push it off, you push it off. Well,
Yeah.
at some point in time, a $10 million turbo compressor is going to blow up. A bunch of stuff that you don't want to spill is going to spill. Or worse, someone's going to get injured, or
Right.
worse. Uh,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, those are the three triggers where somebody picks up the phone and calls me and says, "Hey, we're thinking about reliability." I,
Yeah.
I don't like having to have a crucible moment to think about reliability. Let's just think about reliability now. And I think these kind of conversations that you're creating, Nick, these are crucial. Where are these conversations taking place? Where, ask yourself, if you're on this webinar, are these conversations happening that Nick and I are having? Are they happening inside my company? Am I talking to purchasing? Am I talking to HR? Am I talking to operations about these issues? At least start talking about them. You may not have the greatest solutions, but at least start talking about them. You don't have to wait. So now we get to Nick's real question. Well, what do you do to have that conversation? You study it. You study it so you know it. So you can go to your boss and say, "Look, let's not wait until somebody gets hurt. Let's not wait until we spill something. Let's not wait until the CEO is going to call us to say, 'Why'd you blow up my $10 million turbo compressor?'" Let's not do that. Let's start paying back our technical debt. Listen, or our reliability debt. Even if you start today, it's going to take you a couple of years if you have reliability debt, just like if you have real debt to pay off, so to speak. But the important thing is get started. All of the programs that I've seen to date are one step in front of the others. And sometimes they start with predictive maintenance, sometimes they start with inventory optimization, sometimes they start with RCM or PMO. And I've got a preference of where to start. I've got a sequence, and you can kind of get the hint from left to right with uptime elements. But I'm old enough to have seen everybody not do it the way I think it should be done and be successful with it. So I
Sure.
have to open up to, yeah, I've got sequences that I like a lot. I like to start with criticality because we don't have all the resources that we need. So how do we pick the assets that if those shut down, the whole place is shut down? How do we know what those are? Mora likes to sandbag people when she gets into a company. And she'll wait until we're in a group, of a big Fortune 500 company, and she'll say, "Well, what's your important asset?" And Jimmy says it's the pump over here, and Johnny says it's the boiler, and Susie says it's the conveyor. And are they're all right if those go down, but which one's the most important? And I think getting
Mhm.
your arms around what are the most important assets, what are that if they fail, they're going to either cause a major production blockage, they're going to cause a sustainability issue, or they're going to cause a safety issue. Those we got to handle right away.
Which makes sense. I think, when people think about ROI, like, they want to know, like, what's the most impactful levers to pull? Is it the downtime? Is it the throughput, gain and the opportunity? Is it, safety, inventory turns? And maybe the answer is actually not, like you said, a one size fits all. It, you know, depends on what you're seeing at your plant or in your facilities, and try to point out those opportunity, or, those weak points or potential risks, Is that kind of the, maybe the better way to think about it and frame it, instead of say, hey, this is the try this model that works for, A, B, C, D in order for everyone?
Yeah, rather than going and getting some solution off the shelf, here's what companies do or whatever. There is no one approach to it. The reason why I like criticality as a starting point, it gets people familiar with the assets. It gets people talking to each other for one
Yeah.
thing. Are our drawings up to date? Or do we even have an accurate list of assets? I'm
Right.
sure you find that all the time. We find
Yeah.
that less than 50% of the people have all their assets in their CMMS. Less than 50% of the people have all their parts in a CMMS. Less
Mm.
than 50% of the people have their work logged, all their work logged in it. When I say that, they have some work logged, they have some parts logged, they have some, assets logged, but not all of them. Well, if you went into your accounting department and they said, "Hey, we're grabbing a good 60% of the deposits here. We got a good 60% of, we're
You shut them.
at least 70% of the checks we're writing."
Yeah.
Then you would say this is meaningless. It's meaningless.
Right.
You would insist on it. For some reason, CMMS is a Wild West still. They don't enforce it the same way they enforce the accounting, but it is your QuickBooks for your business. It's your accounting. What MaintainX offers, it is your accounting, your business management system for the business of maintenance. And that means everything has to be in it. Everything has to be in there. So, there's just a lot of different issues we're throwing on the table here. I apologize,
No,
but
I think it's
you
helpful.
you need technology, and technology, in order to help you, has to have the data
Yeah. You can't improve what you're not measuring, right?
or what you
And
don't even know about.
or what you're,
We had
yeah.
one company. They had a really great process when they had a new capital project. They had a really great process to get all their assets in. But they gave maintenance, if it was like a $50 million or less capital project, that was run by maintenance, and they didn't have all those in the system. So you just got to make sure you're universally capturing everything.
Yeah. I see a lot of folks that don't capture their vendor work, third party done, because they're like, oh, it's
We
certain.
have seen that too. They enforce, okay, you guys, my mechanical guys, you align here's the alignments, but then the mechanical contractor comes in, they don't hold them to the same standards.
That's right. And then you don't have the cost of ownership on that asset represented
Yeah,
well.
that's
And,
right. That's right.
yeah.
Well, so
So
that's what it's for. You would never do that in accounting. Treat your CMMS like your accounting program.
I like that. Hey, so we've got folks that are kind of fired up, ready to go, maybe go try to challenge their leadership. But where do you see these business cases fail in the executive review? And like, how can we de-risk those failure points before they head in and have these conversations?
Well, a simple one that you may not have thought about is that you're going along now. So you're going along now with this, whatever you're doing now for maintenance, whatever your expenses are now for maintenance, whatever's coming up for you to repair, restore, renew, replace, inspect. That doesn't go away when you all of a sudden the light bulb turns on and you got all the bosses support and everything, and everybody's going to reliability. What you have to prepare the bosses for is, we're going to have, for the next 6 months or a year, this reactive work is still going to be happening, and we're actually pushing that reactive work earlier in detection. So now let's say we start a vibration analysis program. Well, the problem that would have been about a year from now is now, on top of the other reactive problems that we haven't cured in the plant. So it's almost like you're double stacking. Here's a proactive work line and here's a reactive work line. For a little while, those are going to be both. You're going to stack those. Eventually, you're going to get rid of the reactive work line and you're going to be proactive all the way across. But if you don't set the expectations with your bosses, they're going to say, you said that if we go to reliability, we're not going to have any reactives. Well,
Right.
that takes a while to get that now reactive stuff out of the system. We call it the predictive maintenance hump, because you're moving that problem detection earlier than you would have had you had a reactive program. So you're doing reactive and proactive. It's almost doubling the work, and your boss is going to say, "Our work order count is through the roof here with your proactive approach."
Yeah.
You need to be able to prepare them for that. What some companies do is they actually hire contractors to continue with the the reactive work, and they'll
Mm,
start moving their team to the proactive work, so that their thinking is proactive and everything, and they'll let the contractors deal with the reactive work. But whether you do that or not, you need to be prepared, and so your boss, you got to tell your boss it's going to get a little worse before it gets a little better, and this is where you, Mr. Boss, Mr. or Ms. Executive Sponsor, need to then show your leadership and say, we're staying the course. Yes, this is more expensive. Yes, for right now, it's more expensive. The savings are going to come in 6 months or a year. Uh, your corporations can't change fast. We Reliability Web's 30 people. It takes us forever to change anything. You
yeah.
know, and because getting 30 people to agree on pizza is hard. So how do you get them to agree on, all this other stuff? That's why change is so difficult. So you got to just acknowledge, yes, we see this new proactive path, this new way of being, of new data tracking and everything in the CMMS and everything. But things are not going to be perfect for a little while, and we're going to have both our old bad ways of working and our new good ways of working together, and I think that's the expectation you have to set, because we've seen so many plugs get pulled after year 1 or 2 or even year 3, because they just expected earlier results. But if you're deep in reliability debt, it's going to take you that 1, 2, 3 years to pay it all back, so that all your equipment's sort of back up to snuff.
Yeah, and Jonathan in the chat here brought up a good point that I think is important as you're thinking about managing expectations, is that you're still, it's impossible to eliminate all reactive work, right? You're still,
That's right.
at some point you're still going to have, and just set that expectation up front that you're going to have zero reactive. Um,
No, and some
eh,
people need to be good at reactive.
yep,
You better not lose your ability to respond to
yeah,
reactive work, because, like Nick says, you're always, gonna. I've been around long enough that even if you've got the most brilliant reliability and maintenance strategy in the world, someone is going to do something that's going to shut something down, and if you're all proactive, your boss isn't going to care. He's going to go, this pump is down now. I need this. I don't need
yeah,
vibration analysis. I need this pump back up.
that's right. And when you think about, like, so we're kind of the boss, the leadership, they're on board. They're kind of, okay, Terry, we'll move forward with this. Um, how do you think of, like, how do you advise companies to scope a pilot to show believable improvement, and what KPIs would you target? What time frame? Because, like you said, this is going to take potentially years, right? So how do you know at a pilot stage if you're on the right path, and how do you help kind of build that momentum?
Well, I wish all bosses were totally enlightened, and we could get this 3-year path going. They're not. They want 90-day results, and so you better play the game called 90-day results. You got to
Mm,
get really good at delivering those short-term results while you're keeping your eye on the long-term ball. But you are playing a game called short-term ball too, so you have to
mm,
be able to do both. Um, Pick your biggest, most humongous, most audacious problem to deal
mm.
with your pilot. Do not say, okay, here's a low consequence thing. We'll go do it on the low consequence thing, because I don't really want to take any risk. And go with the biggest, hairiest problem you can possibly imagine, because there's where your return is going to be.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Don't shy away from the big problems. You may find that having an RCM expert or a PMO expert totally transforms the maintenance approach to it. So good, and then the results will start to trickle down. So you got to sort of play the game. If you're really going to take that to the extreme, like things like steam trap testing, things like air leak detection. Now, is air leak detection really going to, propel your reliability program? No. But what you can do is say, aha, our compressor spent $30,000 last month on electricity. Look at 25,000 this month or 20,000 this month, because you can meter the compressor. It's super easy. And you can just show, here's 10 grand, boss. Here's 15 grand. Here's 30 grand. Same thing with steam. If
Yep.
you have checked your steam traps in 2 years, 50% of them are leaking steam, completely wasting the steam. You
Right.
know, that's super quick payback. So
Yep.
while those things are not going to propel your reliability, you have to figure out, my boss wants results every 90 days. I need to deliver monetary results every 90 days. Reliability is long term. You will get those results eventually, but while you're waiting for those longer term results to come in, you have to have some strategies for the short term results. Your bosses are all short term.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's that resonates with what I see, and that kind of ties in well to a question we have in the audience, which is like, how do you explain reliability and asset management to the CFO? And I think you're kind of touching on that right there. Is show the opportunities to save, you know, for savings in your facility, in your operation, whether it's, preventing the loss of steam, or figuring out like what other advice would you sort of think would get the CFO excited about?
Well,
Um,
the gadgets, they love the gadgets. You know, the robot dog walking around, the infrared camera. I particularly love infrared. Before I did this job for the last 26 years, I was the CEO of
Mhm.
UE Systems, which is an ultrasound manufacturer, and it does everything inside a plant. Really handy device and fairly relatively inexpensive. You know, the predictive maintenance gadgets are usually really good because they're visual, they're easy to understand. You know, you put the headphones on the ultrasound, you can hear your plant and you can hear the squeaky bearing and everything. You do the infrared and you can see the motor's got a red hot blazing temperature in the middle of it. I mean, even the most ignorant manager can understand that. You know, kind of thing. It's visual. So play the game, visual. Every other department in your company is fighting for these funds, for fighting for these improvement funds. You're up against slick marketing people, distribution people, supply chain people, operations people, R&D people, and they're all going to take as much money as they can to improve their departments. You're at the Olympics of an Olympic level of improvement, and you're competing with the other people in your company. Asset management is nice, the final part of the pyramid, because there you're sort of looking at the business aspects of what
Mhm.
you're doing in maintenance and reliability to deliver the company's objectives, making sure you're not during COVID, we worked prior to COVID, we worked with a company that made N95 masks. We only knew them as welder masks and paint masks at that time. And
Yeah.
so this company that made it wanted to cut 10% out of their maintenance costs. So we were working with them to do that. Here comes COVID. All of a sudden, their N95 orders went crazy. And not only that, if you
Yeah.
remember, our president at the time said, "Hey, you'll be sending all the N95 masks, Miss International Company, that you're making in Germany and Canada. You'll be bringing them all to the United States. I order you to do so." And they're like, "We have supply contracts and stuff." They had to do 60 new lines in 6 months, which they did accomplish. But so imagine this: you're doing asset management to save 10% of maintenance costs. Then all
Yeah.
of a sudden your bosses say, that game's over. We're not doing that anymore. Now we're going to open 60 new lines. They expect that you have enough control over the technical activities that you're doing that you can realign them to come over with this new objective that you've got. Now, how would you do if your boss completely changed the objective you've been working on for the last 6 months or 3 years, and then said there's a new one? Do you have enough span of control? What we found is that in all of our clients, the ones that had good CMMS, and I'm not just saying this because Nick's on the phone, on the call, the ones that had good control over their data, that had all
Mhm.
their data in the system, that had all their work in the system, they switched to remote and isolated work almost instantly. They had almost no loss during COVID. The ones that had half their assets in their CMMS and then they tried to switch to remote work, that was a major struggle. They couldn't basically, they couldn't do it. We saw huge differences between the people who managed their asset data well, because they could then use that data to make the new plan. Something's going to happen in your career where your company is going to shift, and you better be able to. They're counting on you as a business professional to shift with them. And yes, it'll take some time and everything, but you need to have that kind of control, that kind of span of control. So that's why we layer an effective maintenance strategy with an effective reliability strategy, effective asset management strategy. I know it probably sounds a little bit like mumbo jumbo now, but they are distinct, and they all are at making decisions. At the end of the day, maintenance is a bunch of decisions every day. Reliability is decisions every day. Asset management's decisions. How do you join them up? How do you
Yeah.
line them up across your organization, both across functional and across time? Across time,
Yeah.
this is a 10-year asset, a 20-year asset. How do you line that up? And that's exactly what Nick and team are doing up there. They're connecting the dots of the data. Doesn't matter when the data was formed. They've got it. They can get it. They can analyze it. So data, data, data. That is the way to the future.
100%. I was just on site with a client of ours, and they work. They're a large enterprise company, and this guy, but that's they don't seem to have unlimited resources like nobody does. But this guy and his facility seemed to have unlimited resources for any new tool or program he wanted, and it was an unusual kind of dynamic that I don't see a lot of times. It's like I can't get enough money to buy a new set of tools, let alone all these fancy other vision systems or infrared or any of those things. And I was like, "What's your secret?" And he said, "Every time with everything I do, I bring data to the leadership team, and I prove the ROI of what we've already invested in. And it makes them really confident that I'm going to continue to be a good steward of future investments." So to your point, if you have that data first sort of mindset that you're building off of a foundation of principles that unlocks the opportunity for you to get the resources that you need to keep growing the program.
And
It's
remember when we were in first grade, second grade, third grade, and somebody brought in a show and tell.
Yeah.
It's the most exciting thing in the world. That bus is still like that. You show them the infrared gadget, the ultrasound
Yep.
gadget, that just amplifies it for them. That's not where, that all that stuff, take it from me. That's end of life asset management. It's good. Got to have it. You don't want to get surprised. It's like having TSA is the last thing before we get on the airplane. It's the
Yep.
same. It's the same thing with predictive maintenance. There are other things you can be doing to really move toward that investment, but that is a good first one because it's very tangible, very seeable, and you got plenty of things that can be predicted early that will save you a lot of time and energy and effort. So let's get that handled first, and then that sort of starts to make believers. In the beginning, they won't believe you. They'll say, that vibration instrument can't be right. That I don't see any problem with that bearing. If you put that under a microscope, you'd see a big scratch down the roll. You'd be like, yeah, they nailed it. They hardly ever get it wrong nowadays. It's these instruments are
Yeah.
fabulous.
It's pretty incredible. And just to kind of put a point on the kind of executive approach, like we have a question from Francisco here. It was like, in your experience, what are the most powerful financial or process oriented metrics like cost of poor quality, OEE, or TCO that successfully translate reliability improvements into the executive language of profitability and resonate most effectively in a boardroom?
Well, I mean, I wish it was all those things. I don't, I very rarely do I walk into companies and they can really tell me TCO. They can tell me total cost of ownership across the asset life cycle. That would be great because that
Yeah.
would be just black and white for the executives to see. You're sort of stuck with availability, asset utilization, that kind of stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, prior to those metrics, that's what I like is availability, reliability and availability. Those are my two favorite metrics. But what's the metric you use to determine the health of your reliability culture, the reliability thinking? What metric are you measuring that with? Because
Mhm.
that is what's going to happen is, yes, you have to get all the technical aspects right. You have to get the leadership right. You have to get the business processes right, but all that is going to be delivered through the people and culture at work. So how is your people and culture at work? What are they thinking? What do
Mhm.
they think about reliability when you're not telling them? What do they think? What do they say about reliability when you're not telling them at your plant? And that's your culture. So how do you measure that? And how do you move that if it needs to be moved? And we want to spend the money on the technology. God bless. want to spend money on the gadgets, God bless, but we should be putting an equivalent amount on investment into our people and culture at work. Competency, RASI charts, we really need to boost on the human side. People have to have a voice. Sometimes when I'm on the front line, I'll ask somebody, I'll be down at the plant floor, I'll see something that's odd, and I'll ask the operator, why are you doing it that way? And it breaks my heart. They say to me, I've worked here 20 years and nobody's ever asked me that question. I'm like,
Right.
aren't you the guy who works on this machine? Yeah. Aren't you the one who knows the most about this machine? Yeah. And there's an issue with this machine? Yeah. And they didn't talk to you about it? Yeah. And when I was younger, that's how I made a living as a consultant. I would go
Right.
in, I would get the bosses to take me to where the problem was. I would ask
Mhm.
them to go away, and then I would talk to the workers closest to the problem. There was never one time. I wish I could tell you I was a great consultant. I sucked as a consultant, but the people that were closest to the asset always gave me the answer.
Yeah.
I was stumped because they always
They know.
they told me
Yeah.
exactly what was going on.
They see it. They live it. They know how to work around it or try to avoid it, and they fear it. That makes total sense.
So yeah,
Well,
talk to our front line. Our front line is really where reliability meets road. And then you've got your supervisors. If your supervisor's on here, listen, empower your front line. Don't be afraid of your front line. Don't try to tamp your front line down. Don't try to control those frontline people. They are what keeps your plant running. Let's unleash them a little bit. I know you're there to sort of control them and keep them productive, but sometimes that turns into a little bit of sort of knowledge and cultural, I'm going to use the word oppression just to shock you. We really need to free them up. That's where the real knowledge of our operation is.
agreed. And I challenge executives, anytime I can to say, and I encourage folks that feel comfortable to do this, challenge their leadership is, when's the last time they walked to the plant floor and shadowed the folks doing the work, and not with like a dog and pony show that the exec is here or leadership's here, just almost like undercover boss mode. Go and actually see I promise the list of priorities of things that they think are the challenges in their business change dramatically when they actually see the current state of how things are operating.
We do this thing called defect elimination, and when we do it theoretically with the top management, okay, name the defects in process here. They're
Yeah.
like, I don't really know what the defects are. But if we go to the front line and we say, name the defects that are here in this area, they could give us a list of 20. And they've had those defects. Here's the vice president on the mezzanine. Reliability is job one for us. We're focused on reliability. And then they send the operator back, and the guy's got a hydraulic drip on the machine that's been there since 1978. And they tell him to put a pan underneath it.
Right.
That's not a reliability. And you know what? If they give that guy a wrench, he'd go like this, and he'd tighten that hydraulic fitting, and there'd be no more leak. But he's not allowed to tighten the hydraulic fitting. And they told him put a work order in. His work order priority 99. No one ever shows up to tighten the hydraulic fitting.
Yeah.
That's the kind of crazy stuff that happens in there. So you have, even if you can't do this big stuff that Nick and I are talking about, you can empower the front line to fix their own defects. Give them some time to identify them. Give them some time to fix them. Say you don't get any money to do it. You just have to fix it, kind of a thing. That is super powerful. We've seen that really start to move reliability needles. That may sound silly, but you start taking care of those little problems, then they're not going to turn into big problems. And those little problems may never have turned into big problems, but they make the workforce frustrated. Why you want a frustrated workforce when they know what to do to fix it? Let them fix it.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, I want to see if we can we can have a conversation in 2025 here without talking about or mentioning AI. I wanted to just get your thoughts on like what are some practical steps that you think reliability can take this quarter so that AI amplifies and improves their efforts as opposed to being the distraction.
Well, I'm actually in Switzerland skiing down a mountain right now. This is just my AI agent here talking to you. No, but eventually that's probably what it's going to be. What it's going to be like. The
Yeah.
advances are mind blowing. We Eric gave me a little bit of the conversations you guys have been having, and he's been telling me the reactions of his workforce when they, I don't know if you're working in the planning area or what, but when they
Yeah, yeah,
see, when they see their data, when they sort of experience AI on their data and their situation, their jaws just drop.
yeah.
I guess I give you one example is that we work with a company that does rail inspection. The way you used
Mm,
to do rail inspection, you took this old car and you put it on there and you drove these magnometers and all this, and you'd collect all this sensor data like a mile at a time, kind of a deal. You just never got to the whole railroad. Now what they did, they built these box cars and they've got all the sensors on the box car. So whenever the train is hauling, there's a box car that's just gathering all this sensor data. It's like a stack of 19 or 20 different sensor readings at once to find out if there's any, no, and now they're pulling that 24 hours a day, collecting 17 layers of track data,
that's fun.
24 hours a day. Now, okay, your job, Jimmy, is to watch the screen and let us know when anything, no way. No way.
Yeah,
Humans can't absorb that kind of data, nor should they.
right.
So what's the question? AI is going to be the most significant thing that's going to happen in everybody's lifetime that's on this call.
Yeah.
So start getting to know it. There's a difference between the personal life AI and the professional life AI, but at least in your personal life, go get a Perplexity account, go get an OpenAI account, go get a Gemini account. They're all, a lot of them you can start off for free and stuff, and just start mucking about with it. Companies like Nix here, they got whole AI labs that are working in the background to enhance their product. At the end of the day, it's all about data. And what this AI can do. AI is not as smart as a person now, but man, is it good on data. Super good. And it can put things together that you're not going to see as a human being. And it's never going to forget anything. I forget stuff. It always reminds me. So it's healthy. Don't be scared of it. Are people going to lose their jobs? Yes. But they're going to lose their jobs to people who know how to use AI to do their jobs. They're not going to lose
Mm,
their jobs to AI. They're going to lose their jobs to people who know how to do their jobs with AI. Start learning AI. Don't be afraid of it. Every time MaintainX comes out with a feature, turn it on and use it. Start using it. It is going to be so significant. And there's this Gen AI that's sort of an advisor in your head in the one time. But what, I'm positive Nick hasn't told me any of the secrets of the development there, but I'm quite positive they're working on what's called agentic AI to start doing the work processes. Maintenance is a bunch of work processes strung together. It is perfect for agentic AI, and you're going to be shocked at all the manual stuff you're doing now that's going to be automated in the next 12 to 24 months. It's like having other people on your maintenance team. How many people on this call have, like Nick said, unlimited resources in terms of labor? No one. So we could all use 10 agents, 20 agents, 30 agents, 50 agents doing different things, and you'll be able to build those agents yourself. Um,
Yeah.
I'm all in. If AI kills us at the end of the day, I guess I got to go with that. But I don't really want to, and I don't think it's going to do that. I really think we have a lot of opportunity here to realize the potential of the human soul, the human brain, the human creativity. AI is going to unlock that for us, not tamp that down. You're going to be
Mm,
doing higher level things. You're going to be doing more things that cognitively currently only a human being can do. And so just prepare yourself for that and get your skills sharpened. Learn how to prompt, learn what context is, learn a few things about it. You don't have to become an AI expert. You don't have to go to MIT and get a degree or anything, but you do need to sharpen your skills. Along with sharpening your maintenance skills, your reliability skills, and your asset management skills, you do have to start sharpening your AI skills. I guess on the other side of that, the good news is because of tech companies like Nix, it's just going to be there. It's going to be like the water that the fish swim in, the air that we all breathe. We're not going to really be thinking about it. When it comes to applications, they're just going to build it in, and it's just going to get better every day.
yeah, no, I think you nailed it. And I like the sort of dual approach, which is play with it in your personal life, become less afraid of it, become more familiar with it, but also focus on building, identify opportunities to, if it feeds off of data, make sure you're capturing that data, make sure you're, you've got something for these tools to work with, because that's going to help you take advantage of it. I've
Don't
got
take
another
your
question.
don't take
Yeah, go
don't
ahead.
take don't take your company data and upload it to Gemini, okay? Just be careful of what you're doing there. Make sure you're quite aware of what your data settings are.
Yeah, make sure. Yeah, that's for sure. We try to make we are we're very careful about how we leverage our AI tool, both internally and for external use, for so that it doesn't become part of the broader training pool. But those free AI tools definitely, they will it will suck that data up and potentially spit it out someplace you don't want. So it's a good reminder. Um, I've got one more question from the audience here that I want to quickly throw at you. You know, they said, beyond compliance tracking, what approaches would you recommend for using MaintainX or CMMS data to fuel continuous improvement initiatives, such as identifying chronic failure modes or quantifying the ROI of reliability projects? So, like, what data do you think is
Well,
useful?
there's sort of two. One is if you're in a production environment, I like things that are easy to track. So something like maintenance spend to revenue, maintenance spend to sales, something that you know what the maintenance spend is and you know what the revenue is. So what's that ratio? Because there are other ratios like net asset value and things of that nature, but they can really be fuzzy. They can really be hard to get your arms around. So I do like to do that. Now I've lost my track. What was the original? Whoa, well, besides compliance,
Yeah, what data do you use to fuel those continuous improvement projects?
so there's
And
there's
that's a good one, right?
cost
Like,
saving. There's cost savings data,
mhm.
and you're going to have to learn to live with that. This if had this motor failed, had this gearbox failed, so you need to have an understanding of what's the cost of downtime at your plant. Now,
Yeah,
I mean, some numbers are crazy, like $250,000 an hour.
yeah.
You may be in that situation, in which case be well aware of it. So what's the cost of downtime, and what's the bonus of not having that cost? So no one's going to give you actual money for it, but that's one side of it. It's sort of a disadvantage side to be on, because people doubt it. That motor wouldn't have burnt out. That motor would, but you have to take full credit. When your infrared finds a glowing motor and you were able to prevent it from and schedule the downtime on a weekend or something where the production isn't going, that's huge. It's so huge. You stop being shy and you take full credit for it until somebody pulls that credit out of your hand. You say, I saved this company $250,000. And the best person you're going to get to join you on that quest is somebody from accounting. Go to your finance department. Say, I'm trying to figure out cost savings from my actions. I avoided a negative situation. How can we price that? And you get accounting to validate the pricing for cost savings. Then you will never get an argument after that. So partner up with your finance and your accounting, and sit down with them, buy them lunch and tell them, help me come up with this calculation. That's one. The other one is, if you can, take full credit for the production increases. So if you were making 250 widgets, and now because your maintenance is so proactive, you're making 275 widgets, then you take advantage of those 25. um, Operations is going to take advantage. They're going to say, look, we're making 25% more. They're not going to go, we're making 25% more because of our brothers and sisters in maintenance. You have to grab it. You have to get a little, I don't know if it's passive aggressive or what, but
Yeah,
you sort
own
of
your wins, own your victories.
stake your claim. Stake your
Yeah.
claim. Now, if somebody wants to come and yank it away from you, maintenance always kind of gets the short end of the stick. But that, or you wouldn't be working in this area. So you gotta take the victory, claim all the victories you can, both on the increased production side, because you can attach that to money, but also partner up, because like on steam traps, I'll just give you one example. I walked into a place and they showed me the steam trap report. And the guy claimed $400,000 worth of savings, but they were only spending $300,000 on fuel. It was a little hard to make that kind, because they weren't running on zero. So you don't want
Yeah.
to make you don't want to make wild claims. That's why you want to get involved with your finance department to get them to get that cost avoidance, that cost savings. There are two different categories: cost avoidance. You want a formula for that, and cost savings. You want a formula for that, and you need to track it cumulatively. So that, 5 years from now, when everything's going good, you got to remind your boss, remember when we used to be reactive? Here were the costs. Here we are proactive, and here's the cost now, and here's the difference. Go to LinkedIn and learn how to read a financial statement. Just take a class, just take a half-hour class, take an hour class, learn profit and loss statement and balance sheet. That's all you really need to know. Look at those two things, and that's going to make a huge difference for you.
Or ask Gemini or one of these AI tools, ChatGPT, to teach
Yeah,
it to you in that language too, right?
that's true
Uh,
too. True too. I'm
I know
type old school. Sorry.
I challenged Terry today to see how much we could teach people in an hour, but the reality is this is like a multi-week course, multiple like years worth of learning to try to cram into one. So I want to give a quick plug here to our academy. If you haven't seen that, our community, we got a lot of great discussions going on there, as well as a special campaign that just started. Go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. But most importantly, IMC 2025 is around the corner. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, Terry, give us a quick overview of what this is all about, and what's going to be the big theme this year for
Well,
number
it's
39.
the speed of reliability is what the theme is, and what it is. It's a group of people who are interested in maintenance. About 1,200, 1,200 of them from 60 different countries coming in. So these are people. Some of them are, if you're in reactive, some of them are in reactive. If you're in the middle of reactive to proactive, some of them are in the middle of reactive to proactive. Some of them are 10, 15 years into their reliability program. So they've really got things firing on all cylinders. They are so generous. Nick, you've been there. The people are so friendly. They'll
It's
walk,
great.
and you can say to them, which vibration are you using? How do I get a hold of my spare parts? How do you convince your boss? You can get I love the conference. I think we've got the best speakers. I think we've got the best workshops. I think we got the best main stage. Nick, we're really grateful that you support it both from an exhibition as well as a speaking side, and you teach our audience. But to me, the real value is meeting the other attendees. You're going to learn if you sit at a different lunch table every day, you sit at a different breakfast, and you just ask the people at the table, you're going to walk away with so many notes and so many ideas. And the goal of the International Maintenance Conference is to come back and do something. 95% of the people who come to IMC leave with something they can go back and put to work immediately.
Yeah.
And there's about 50 or 60 of the world's leading vendors there that can help you. They can provide services that can help you. They can provide technology that can help you. They can provide training that can help you. And then you can ask other people at the conference, did you use XYZ company? How were they? It's just really a generous knowledge sharing community. And it's just such a wonderful, your maintainers, how wonderful you are, how big your hearts are, that it's not the fairest job in the world. That you got the weight of the world, you're Atlas really, and you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you keep the world running. This is 1,000, 1,200 people that are doing the same thing that will not hold back. They will tell you anything you ask them. And it's really, really valuable to be there because you start to see it. It's hard to imagine what it's like in proactive when you're in reactive. But if you can come down and see it, or you can show people on your team, wow, look at, they did it. And look at it sounds like where they started is a lot like where we are. And that's been it. There's no secret. Make an improvement, step forward. Make another improvement, step forward. Make another improvement, step forward. Make another improvement, step forward. That is the formula. And you do that for 10 years, you're going to be the vice president of the company.
That's right. Yeah, no, I love the conference. The workshops are great. You have real case studies that folks that are doing the real work that actually come and tell you here's how they did it. Then you get to ask questions, hang out with them for several days. It's a great event, great opportunity.
It's how I became aware of your company. One of their customers was running around saying, my gosh, I gave my tech a phone with a work order and the guy was able to create a work order with no training and then complete the work order. They were so shocked because their older system was very clunky and they had to do all kinds of training. You had to learn all kinds of rules and codes and everything. He said he just gave so it's like those kind of breakthroughs. And so since then, we're like, wow, if you like that, there's probably got to be other people. We started chasing after Nick, saying, "Come on, bring that technology here." And he has, and hopefully more and more people are coming that way. Your technology should be easy. It shouldn't be hard. And MaintainX has really done a good job listening. I want to say one last thing. I was recently privileged to go with a customer that uses MaintainX and sit in a collaboration meeting. I'm 100% convinced that is the future. You don't have a supplier with MaintainX. You have a collaborative partner. And if you have a technology company you're dealing with that isn't a collaborative partner, run. Run to a collaborative partner as soon as possible, because no matter how good or bad the technology is, if you don't have that collaboration, they're learning every day what their successful customers are doing. They're adopting that into their technology, and then they're feeding that back out into the marketplace. If you're missing out on that conversation, you're missing out on a huge part of the value. Not every company you ever deal with will be that collaborative. In fact, hardly any of them are. I think you, Nick, and the team are leading a new way of doing business. It's not just customers, it's collaboration.
Love it. Well, no, I appreciate that, Terry. And thank you again for your time today. Appreciate all the folks who have been here. Anyone who wants to stay in touch with you, Terry, follow your content, LinkedIn, go to Follow
Link-
Reliability, sign up.
Yeah.
Terry.
Reliabilityweb.com. LinkedIn is the best way if you want to actually communicate with me. My email has 243,000 unopened emails in it.